Hello, and welcome to Real Estate with Rusty. I'm Danielle Valley.
And I'm Rusty Pop.
And today we're here to talk to you about the Silicon Valley real estate market and the difference between teams of agents and solo agents.
That's right, Danielle. And so we'd like to get started with a little bit of a market update as we do every week. And as I've been speaking about, most recently, the market has been shifting quite a bit. We've definitely seen the inventory of homes for sale increase, and that has been across the board. As I've said before, it's been a thing that's been going on for about 2.5 months now. So it seems like every week that I go over this market update, I have to update how long it's been since the inventory was super low, which was at this point now about 2.5 to 3 months ago, we had levels at around 700 homes for sale in the entire Silicon Valley, whereas today we're at about 1,500. So it's more than doubled, which has given buyers a lot more options on the market. And I think that that's really good for buyers because they actually have choices of what it is that they want to buy. They can move a little bit at more of a leisurely pace and actually really think about their decision of what they're going to purchase, because this is their largest investment. So I think overall that makes for a good market for everybody, where sellers are still selling their homes for great prices because, as you know, 1,500 homes for sale is not a lot, in compared to how much demand we have here. But giving buyers more than one choice when they're looking at houses obviously is more beneficial for the market as a whole. We're still seeing homes they're selling on average in certain neighborhoods as low as 7 days, and in other neighborhoods it's up to 14, 15 days of marketing time for a home that's presented well and priced well. Obviously there's outliers. There's going to be homes that are priced too high, or they're priced at a level that is not going to attract as many buyers, and those ones are taking longer to sell, sometimes 30, 60, 90 days, but that's definitely not the norm. The norm is definitely within 2 to 3 weeks at the very most. So that is the market update today. As I said last week and the week before, it's a very strong market still. If you're thinking about selling a home in the Silicon Valley or the Greater Bay Area, it's still a great time to get a very, very good price for your home. However, you should expect that presenting your house has become even more important, right? And then secondly, you should expect that the marketing time, it's not going to be overnight like it was. It's probably going to take a week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks in order to get a great offer. That being said, as well, buyers really have an opportunity to make some better choices. And in certain circumstances, if homes aren't priced as aggressively as they were before, and the competition is lower, maybe they can actually strike a better deal and maybe save a little bit of money as well. So overall, I think it's a little bit more balanced today than it was 3 months ago, and that's a good thing for everybody.
Totally agree with that. So if you're a buyer, you have options, and you're going to get into the home of your dreams.
Absolutely, yes.
So today we're here to talk about teams, and you'll notice that teams of real estate agents have become more prevalent in brokerages over the past couple decades. The reason why we have teams now we have a variety of reasons really, and teams operate a little bit more like well-oiled machines. So we can compartmentalize the services that we offer, and in a real estate transaction, there are many tasks that need to be done. And in order to have a smooth transaction, we have different teammates that own different parts of the operation. For instance, we will have specialists that are just listing agents, and then we also have others that are buyer's agents. We have transaction coordinators, we have assistants, and so forth. And by doing it and spreading the work throughout the team, you'll notice that we can handle a larger caseload. We can accommodate more clients this way, and with the proper systems in place, you'll notice that the transactions happen to go more smoothly. Wouldn't you agree, Rusty?
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I think that one of the things that I love about this topic is that I think the public out there, our viewers may be confused because there's teams there's real estate brokerages, and then there's solo agents, and then there's independent brokers. And so it can be confusing as to what is what and who is who. So I like everything that you just said about teams, though. I mean, the truth of the matter is that, you can't grow without people. So trying to handle everything for yourself will lead to burnout for an agent, which is not good for their clients. And then also trying to handle everything yourself may provide some inefficiencies in the workflow, which is not only putting some strain on the client themselves, but also the process, which can make it longer. And it can also just make it more hectic and more difficult for the buyer or seller to follow along with. But you mentioned also that there's systems that have to be put in place. So we'll go over all of that. I think teams are great. I think solo agents also can be very, very efficient and very, very good as well. So I'm definitely not saying that solo agents don't have the ability to also provide their clients with great customer service, but it's easier with the team. It reminds me of a quote that always comes to mind that Steve Jobs once said, and it was, "Great things in business never are done by one person. They're done with a team of people." The iPhone was not built by Steve Jobs.
No.
And it was not marketed solely by Steve Jobs and hasn't become the phenomenon that it is with one person, but with a large team of people that all are really good at certain things, and then those certain things come together and make for a very good experience for their client, or in their case, for their customers that purchase those phones. So similarly, real estate is like that as well. So as you said, Danielle, a good team can run like a well-oiled machine. And similarly, solo agents can as well. So I like to think, I played a lot of sports growing up. I know that you also are very athletic and have a background in that. And when it comes to a sport, obviously teammates, they hold each other up. They also hold each other accountable. And that's a very important part of any business is having support, and then also having people that help you actually, or rather keep you on track. Right? Everybody that has a job has a manager, and then that manager has a manager. And that's just how business gets done in the most efficient manner. So I think it's really good that real estate has also sort of went that way. Yeah. One of the things I think that can be confusing is is a team a brokerage, or is a brokerage a team, or how does that work? And in reality, a team is just a small business inside of a larger business. And so when you're working with the team, you're specifically working with that lead agent and then also the agents that are on the team. And so it's an important distinction to keep in mind. As I was saying about the sports reference, there's also, I played baseball. I don't know about you. And I know a lot of, like soccer, for example, it's a team sport. Everybody plays a different position. And that works out really well. Then there's also solo sports, right? Like boxing, for example, or UFC fighting. And in those cases, that person may go into the ring by themselves, but they do have a supporting cast, and they did not get there by themselves. And they do have to call on certain people for certain things. A boxer has a trainer, in many cases, multiple trainers, one for different aspects of training, right? Conditioning versus strength, for example. They also have nutritionists. They have people that handle them depending on how.
Yeah, PTs, chiropractors.
Absolutely, doctors. So in general, a solo athlete may also have a team behind them that you don't see. So a solo agent will have a team of maybe an assistant, or a team of a lender, an inspector, an appraiser, and other different type of people that they work with on a regular basis that, they don't work under the same exact company necessarily, but they are a team and do have their processes down efficiently as well. Now, when you're working with a real estate team, where you have multiple agents that work together on a transaction, I think it does a lot to streamline the process, and I think that's where our viewers can really find some benefit from this show, is just explaining that when you are working with a real estate team, it's not that they're put on an assembly line. Now, there are definitely teams out there that will do it that way, right? There are even brokerages out there where they work that way, and I'm not going to name who they are, but there is a type of team where there is a guy or a gal who is the lead, and that person is really only there to sign the paperwork and make sure that they sell the client on the objective. And then once they do that, they hand them off to the next phase, who then hands them to the next phase, who then hands them to the next phase. And I find that to be really efficient for the team, right? But not so great for the client. Where I think that the more positive environment for a team is one in which everybody works together but has their own role. And everyone is always in the loop on what's going on so that there's no communication breakdown and then the client never feels lost. So a good example of that is, like you mentioned, there are definitely going to be on any team certain people that do certain tasks. And that's actually what a client would want if they really thought deeply about this process. For example, just because your real estate agent is really good at processing paperwork on time does not mean that they're really good at understanding the market and the underlying currents of the market and understanding, their responsibility as communicators to the client, the other agent, to the lender, to the inspector, and so forth and so on. And so having somebody that has the bandwidth to do those really important roles, and then have somebody that's really good at the paperwork as a transaction coordinator taking care of that for them. Obviously, they must keep their eyes on those things, of course. But having somebody that keeps that all moving down the process with no bottleneck just makes it so much easier for everybody involved.
Yep.
And that's just an example. Other examples is we've talked a lot about in our previous talks about what it takes to make your house sell for top dollar. And that's a whole production of coordination. And having somebody that has a great relationship with the vendors be the go-between, it's kind of like hiring a wedding planner, right? So it just makes it so much easier for the bride to do that, right? Well, the same thing with the seller. And having one point of contact for the seller that does all the talking to the vendors and then reporting back to the seller and then reporting back to the lead agent and having everybody, only those three involved as opposed to 9 or 10 people involved just makes things so much easier. So that I feel is a really high benefit to the client. And the other thing is that this process that we're talking about does break up the tasks. And what are the benefits to the client? So when you break up the tasks like that, what I've found to be the case that benefits the client the most is that the agent that they're working with is going to then probably be able to process and do more transactions on an annual basis than a solo agent. Now, that's not entirely always the case, but in general, that's true. And as a result of them being able to be involved in that many more transactions, their ability to understand the market on a very hands-on level is way better than a solo agent. And therefore, they can actually provide more market knowledge, expertise, and experience than a solo agent in many cases. And that's very beneficial to the client. In addition to that, you don't want your agent to be overworked, overtired, or burned out. And so if they're not, if they have more of a balance in their life, which some people, the work-life balance, the unicorn of business, right? Nobody thinks that a top performer can be balanced in their personal and business life. And in real estate, there's no business that I know that infiltrates your personal life more than maybe politics, right? I mean, if we let our phone ring around the clock with text messages, emails, and phone calls, it would, right? And so it's a 24-hour business, and so having support makes that possible. It really, really makes that possible. So, I think those are benefits to the client as well as the agent, and I think that in the end, what you end up with if you work with a team that has a very good system in place for every aspect of the transaction, you can feel like you have the attention of your agent at all times when it's necessary, and then they have the tools to make things happen that you need to have happen. And I just can't imagine a better experience for a client.
Yeah, and then for the agents as well, newer agents that come onto a team will have more of the hands-on transaction experience, whereas if they're on their own from the very get-go, they may not see a contract for a year.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a super good point that I hadn't really thought of, Danielle. So I agree with everything that you just said. For a new agent, and if our viewers are thinking about becoming real estate agents, that's a very good topic. And also, if you're a buyer or a seller, and you have somebody in mind that maybe doesn't have 10, 15, 20 years experience in real estate, but is on a team, they can be just as good at helping you handle your transaction as somebody with all that experience, because they can rely on their team members who do have that experience. And so, kind of going back to if somebody wanted to join the business, I think if I were to start over and go back 16 years, I would join a team for sure. And really just for what you just said. Number one is it's going to create credibility for that agent, because that agent is then going to be able to leverage the team as a whole, both in expertise and in market knowledge, and in just kind of know-how. But also they'll be able to leverage them in terms of, making sure the client feels comfortable working with them. Totally. And I think everybody being comfortable and everybody being confident is very important in our business. And so, yeah, I think that if I was a new agent, I would go back and I would do that. There's other benefits as well. There's auxiliary business that maybe, the person in charge of the team can't handle all of it. Yeah. And so delegating is, again, part of the team process. And as a result, a new agent can actually get their feet in the business and actually start doing transactions much quicker than if they're just, waiting for the phone to ring. Exactly. So yeah, there's a lot of benefits to agents as well as far as being on a team, whether they're, old agents like myself that have been in the business for almost 20 years, or agents that have been in the business for 20 minutes. Yes. Right. So I think that's a really good point.
We'll be back with Real Estate with Rusty after this break.
How do you advertise your business? Are you relying on signs and flyers or using an online campaign? Did you know that TV ads and commercials are the most proven method of promoting or attracting new customers to your business? Whether it's a sole proprietorship, a family business, or a corporation, marketing your business with A&B is the best return on your advertising dollar. So the question really isn't whether you should advertise your business with A&B. Rather, it's why you wouldn't. Contact us to find out the various commercial packages we have to offer.
When it comes to selling a home, most homeowners want to know they're working with the best realtor to maximize their sales price. If receiving the highest possible price for your largest investment is the goal, then hiring the right agent matters. Hi, I'm Rusty Pop with Intero Real Estate Services, and I'm really excited to have the honor of presenting this property. Rusty Pop of Intero Real Estate Services provides superior knowledge of real estate market trends as an extremely active agent in San Jose and the Silicon Valley with a track record of selling throughout the Bay Area. Specializing in 3 keys to getting the top dollar: preparation, presentation, and promotion, Pop Properties has a custom marketing plan for you. Rusty and his team offer a concierge service to get your house on the market and looking its best. We take care of all the details to make sure your home shines to attract the maximum number of buyers, and combined with our worldwide global marketing strategy, we ensure the maximum competition for your home. When buyers compete, sellers win. Specific services offered include a concierge coordination of repairs, cleaning, storage, high-end and extensive marketing, and professional custom staging designed specifically for your home. We can even coordinate a full remodel of your house for you. Staging, high-end, state-of-the-art photography, a lifestyle video, and global marketing all come free when you list your home with Rusty Pop. If you're looking to list your home or simply want to discuss its value in today's market, don't hesitate to call 650-793-9575.
All right, Rusty, so how does this all work? If I was a buyer and coming to you to look for a home,
Yes.
Where would we begin?
That's a really good question. So, the way that I run my team is a little bit different than other teams. I try to empower the agents that work with me, and whether they're, like I said, whether they're brand new in the business or some of the agents on my team that have been selling homes for years, I like to partner with them. I feel like that's the best for everybody, because then, again, back to the confidence thing, right, is giving them the confidence to do it, and giving the client the confidence that they're going to be working with the top. And so what I like to do is provide a service where it's almost like they get 2 agents for the price of 1, right? Or really 3, right? Because then there's going to be first of all added efficiencies, right? So there's a saying that I've always said when it comes to a team is that 1 + 1 does not equal 2. 1 + 1 = 3, because 2 people can do together much more than 2 people can do individually. And that experience is really great for the client, because if you're not available to show them a home, I might be, and vice versa. And that goes for answering questions, that goes for explaining things in detail, and so forth. So, what happens with our team is that, usually myself and a team member, a buyer's agent, will sit down with the buyer, and we'll have a discussion about the market. We'll have a discussion about the process of buying a home, which we've discussed here on the show. And then we'll have a discussion of the most important thing, which is what do they want and what is it that they're looking for? Because at the end of the day, that's what we're here to achieve, is their goal of home ownership, but also the house that they want, you know. And it's funny because I like to try to help people find their dream home. Of course, sometimes your starter home's not your dream home, right? But you know, that is the end goal. So we sit down, we go over those things, we get a really clear picture. Both the buyer gets a clear picture of the market, the process, we get a clear picture of what they're looking for, and then we have a game plan that we build together going forward on how to do it. And then, you know, we go to work together, you know, myself and the other agent, and we team with the buyer themselves, and we all go to work together to find that perfect home. And then from there, you know, there's going to be lots of meetings. There's going to be home showings. There's going to be possibly making an offer on a home that's been shown, and that's going to be an involved process where we're going to be going over paperwork. We're going to be going over inspections and disclosures, the market analysis on that given house they're writing an offer on, and all of those things we do as a team, you know. And then once the house is actually tied up and actually under contract, and you're going to be buying it as my buyer or our buyer, you know, you do then start to work on a limited basis with the transaction coordinator. And at that very, very beginning, it's very important that we're all introduced to each other and we all know each other, and the conversations are all by email, text, or phone, right? But that we're all kept abreast of what each is doing, and you know, we have systems in place that ensure that happens. So I guess the main point of all this is that we want to make sure that the process is not confusing for our clients, but at the same time, they are getting that extra level of service. Like I said, they're getting 2 agents for the price of 1. And as we talked about, actually, as a buyer, it's the price is 0 because you're not actually, you know, the buyer doesn't pay the commission. But yeah, so that's the, you know, high level of what the process looks like for a buyer working with our team. And I think it works out really, really well.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, well, thank you, Rusty. Why don't you tell us the story, one of your war stories from your past?
Sure. So I'm glad you asked, actually, because I think this can demonstrate, you know, how things can work. You know, I was a solo agent before, and that was kind of the norm when I started. It wasn't like you saw teams, and typically what a team meant was that a husband and wife were in the business together, or a couple of, like a brother and a sister, you know, and they take funny pictures together for their business cards, and it was kind of cheesy. And then it's evolved into this thing where they're, like you said, well-oiled machines. Now, I've always prided myself on very, very high level of customer service. And the reason being is because I've always preferred to receive my business from referral. Because I would rather give people really, really good service, have them remember me, and then refer me their friends and family. Because I feel like, number one, that's the best way that I can continue to have a fulfilling job. And secondarily, it's cheaper to generate business by referral. But I'll tell you, I was referred this set of buyers by a lender, actually, somebody that I was working with. I would actually refer my buyers to him to get pre-approved, and then every once in a while he would reciprocate and he would send me a buyer that he had pre-approved, and then he would send him to me to help him find a house. And this particular set of buyers was a very high price point. It was a few years back, obviously, and it was $1.7 million, which at the time was a very high price. It's still a very high price, but back then even more so. And they were a very sweet couple, had a little girl, and were very, very process oriented. In fact, they were both project managers for tech companies.
No kidding.
And so their jobs actually required them to think in such a way that enhanced process and managed process. And so what was interesting about this is that, you know, I did the same things that I do now. I sat with them. We went over the whole process. We went over really what to expect, how I achieved their goal, and then went into great detail on a couple of offers that they made until they finally got the house that they wanted. Went in great detail about how I arrived at the market value, went into great detail about a lot of things. And I actually really did provide them with very exceptional customer service. And I don't say that to brag, I just say that kind of in comparison to the way that all realtors work. You know, I would say 80% of realtors do a so-so job and 20% do an excellent job. So in any event, you know, I did provide them with what I considered very high service. And there was a 4-day breakdown in the process, or not in the process, in communication. And what happened was my mom got really sick. And so I was a little bit out of commission. Not completely, but enough so that when something that was in my queue of files that was moving smoothly, it wasn't something I needed to check up on. So I didn't for 4 days. And then what ended up happening was they were working through the loan process. Now, given that I was their realtor and that they had a loan agent that was processing that, their whole 4 days was caught up with not understanding the loan disclosures. Okay, so they spent that time trying to figure out the loan disclosures. They didn't reach out to me. They did reach out to him. It was ineffective a little bit, and then they got through it. And then 4 days later, I called them. I checked in on them. I said, "How are things going?" And they said things are going okay, but you could tell there was a little something that was off. But they said things were going okay. And then so they asked me if I could get in touch with the seller's agent for a couple of questions that they had about like the alarm system and the sprinklers in the backyard. And so, of course, I reached out right away, no response. I reached out again, no response. I reached out again, no response. So it took 48 hours, maybe it was 72 hours, and I was letting them know this whole time that I wasn't getting a response. But it took a long time to get a response on some pretty basic information from the other agent. And so those two things combined, in their mind, reflected upon me. Because no matter whether they were referred to me by the lender or not, I'm the quarterback of the transaction. And so as a result, they actually, about a week later, called me and said, "Can we have a phone conversation with you? We want to just talk to you about the process." And they basically, for an hour, told me detail by detail what they did not like about the way the process was going. And it was heartbreaking to me in some ways because, again, I feel like I was really doing a good job, but also because, I take criticism to heart. I want to get better. And so I said, my response was, I take all this with the thickest of skin, which was not true because I'm very sensitive. But I told them, look, I appreciate what you said, and I definitely don't want to come across as argumentative or adversarial, but I would like to point out a couple of things. Number one is every single one of your complaints actually should have been, you should have addressed that with me the day that it happened, not fight through it first, and I would have been right on top of it. And second of all, everything that you asked me about and that you didn't feel comfortable with was actually the responsibility of the lender to explain to you. So they basically said, well, you as the real estate agent, isn't it your job to manage everybody? And even if that's not true, which I think is debatable, I would actually say they're right. I would say that it is my job to manage everybody. And part of that, maybe I didn't do a great job, and as a result, it broke down for those 4 days, and so they didn't feel good about it. And the reason I tell that whole story is because number one is that was a very simple, nobody died, right. It was still okay, right? But at the end of the day, that particular client didn't have the best possible experience, and that breaks my heart because that's what I'm all about. And so I feel like I rectified it. I feel like I from that point forward, took care of things. I still had to deal with a very unresponsive listing agent for the rest of the transaction, and that included after close of escrow, there was a couple of things, all of which reflects poorly on me. So in any event, I've been doing this a long time. I have hundreds of satisfied clients, and to this day, probably 99.9% of my clients would say that I'm their friend. I've reached out to this couple probably 7 times, to say happy birthday, to say congratulations on 1 year in your home, and I've never once gotten a response from them. And it's maybe one, if not, it's 2, if not just 1 client that I can say that about. Sure. And so very disappointing. And I think it wasn't the impetus for me to start a team. Right. Okay. However, having a team has made that possibility completely go away.
And then also selecting your preferred partners.
Selecting the right partners, having support when somebody in your family gets sick, which can be unexpected, and so on and so forth. That won't happen again. And so it's a great explanation as to how there is a difference between a great solo agent and a team, and how it can really work to your benefit to work with a team.
Thank you so much, Rusty, for sharing your invaluable knowledge with us today about teams and solo agents. I'm Danielle Valley.
And I'm Rusty Pop, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.